So you sit down at your computer, right?
Yeah.
And you feed this massive, totally disorganized spreadsheet into an AI tool. Or maybe you ask it to draft a really highly sensitive email.
Right. Something that usually takes hours.
Exactly. And within seconds, bam, it's done. The output is actually solid. And you get this sudden rush of, individual productivity.
It really does feel like you just gained a superpower.
It totally does. But then you look around your department or you look at the wider economy and you have to ask a rather uncomfortable question.
Which is?
Well, if every single person in this building has access to that exact same superpower, why isn't the whole organization suddenly 40% more profitable?
Yeah, that is the million-dollar question.
I mean, why aren't we all working half as many hours for the same pay?
It is, honestly, the great paradox of our current technological moment. At the individual desk level, the gains are just undeniable. But at the macro level, the math just isn't translating to the bottom line.
And that, right there, is the core mission of today's deep dive. We are exploring a really fascinating piece of research by Jonathan H. Westover, PhD.
Yes, titled Breaking Through the Discovery Bottleneck.
Right. And we're going to examine why those massive personal productivity gains just aren't turning into organizational superpowers. We are talking about, well, writers producing 40% more content.
Or consultants working 25% faster.
Yeah, those are real numbers from the research. Yet the overall company needle barely moves. I've basically been thinking about this as the productivity puzzle.
It's a puzzle that has left executives incredibly frustrated, to be honest. But Westover's research offers a really compelling diagnosis here.
Okay, lay it on us.
The core thesis is that the real bottleneck holding organizations back isn't a lack of access to AI technology. It's not that they bought the wrong enterprise software or anything like that.
Right.
It is actually a cognitive and organizational hurdle called the mapping problem.
Which is basically a psychological trap keeping companies stuck. And the research uses a really specific term for this initial trap, right? Local search.
Exactly, local search.
Yeah.
When faced with a powerful new, highly flexible technology, organizations default to what they already know. They conduct a local search.
And they just take this brand new AI and they just slap it onto existing familiar tasks.
Yep. The marketing team uses it to write social media posts a little faster. The engineering team uses it for code completion.
So it makes the legacy process slightly more efficient.
Sure, slightly. But it completely misses the transformative value of reconceiving the workflow itself.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because I was trying to visualize this while going through the source material, and it feels kind of like putting a supersonic jet engine on a horse-drawn carriage.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Right. Sure, the horse is moving a bit faster because there's thrust behind it, but the wheels are going to just fly off because the rest of the carriage wasn't designed for aerodynamics or speed.
No, the underlying structure is completely obsolete. And that captures the structural mismatch perfectly. You're increasing the velocity of one component without upgrading the vehicle itself.
So why do managers keep doing this?
Well, the reason they fall into that local search trap comes down to how Westover defines the mapping problem. The research breaks this down into 3 specific pillars.
Okay, what's the first one?
First, there's capability uncertainty. AI is, by its nature, fundamentally unpredictable.
Right, like how a system might write a brilliant, really nuanced email to a high-stakes client.
But then completely hallucinate a critical piece of technical documentation.
Yeah, it's wild. So managers don't actually have a firm grasp on the boundaries of what the tool can and cannot do.
Exactly. And if you are the manager responsible for the final product, you aren't going to entrust your core operations to a tool you don't fully understand. You'll just keep it on the periphery.
Which totally makes sense. Better safe than sorry.
Right. But then the second pillar exacerbates that fear, and that is search space vastness.
Search space vastness.
Yeah. Think about a mid-sized company. There are thousands of microactivities happening every single day across all these different departments.
Oh, for sure.
So a manager looking at that vast ocean of tasks has almost no reliable way to pinpoint the exact optimal place to insert an AI application.
It's just overwhelming. And even if they do find a good spot, they run into the third pillar, right? Which the research calls complementary complexity.
That is really the crux of the issue. The concept means the value of improving one specific step in a process often depends entirely on whether the adjacent steps change as well.
Give me an example of that.
Well, say you use AI to speed up a piece of market research, so it takes 2 days instead of 2 weeks.
Okay, sounds great so far.
But that research still sits in an inbox waiting for a senior partner's monthly review.
Oh, right. Because the review only happens once a month anyway.
Exactly. You haven't actually sped up the organization. The work still stalls.
Yeah.
You simply move the bottleneck from the research phase to the review phase.
Okay, but wait, I'm struggling to see why this is a novel crisis. Isn't this just traditional change management?
How do you mean?
Well, when factories adopted electricity or when offices adopted the internet, companies had to figure out how to restructure their workflows, right? Why is AI so uniquely difficult for a modern manager to map to their business?
That's a really fair question. The difference is that with previous technological revolutions, you had physical or structural constraints that practically forced managers to see how the organization needed to adapt.
Force them how?
Think about electricity in early manufacturing. Before electricity, factories had to be organized vertically, closely clustered around a single central steam engine.
Oh, with all the physical belts running everywhere.
Right. But when electricity arrived, you could put a small motor on every individual workbench. The physical reality of the technology demanded a total, visible redesign of the factory floor.
And the internet demanded new, visible distribution channels. You could literally see the structure changing in the physical world.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But AI is so flexible, it provides zero structural clues.
Because it's purely digital software. It doesn't force you to tear down a wall or reroute a physical supply chain. It's just invisible.
Invisible and incredibly versatile. A large language model can write software code, handle customer service disputes, or draft a 5-year strategic plan.
Right.
Because it doesn't demand a specific physical or rigid digital layout, you need deliberate intellectual frameworks to figure out where it belongs. You have to force the structural redesign yourself.
Which the research calls process decomposition and complementarity mapping.
Yes.
So to ground this in a real-world scenario, the source material uses a really compelling example from healthcare administration. Let's look at a hospital trying to integrate AI.
Okay, so the obvious local search application, a jet engine on the carriage we talked about, is using AI to read patient records and automatically extract billing data.
Which saves the administration a few hours, right?
It does. But if you apply complementarity mapping, you are forced to look at the adjacent steps in the production chain.
So if AI extracts the data and maybe handles clinical documentation by listening to the visit, the doctor suddenly spends significantly less time typing notes.
Right, so the doctor finishes the appointment in 10 minutes instead of 20.
But if the scheduling system is still strictly booking appointments every 20 minutes, the doctor just sits there for 10 minutes.
Exactly. The hospital sees absolutely no financial or operational gain.
Wow.
The value of the AI is only realized if you overhaul the entire scheduling system to handle shorter, more frequent visits.
And it doesn't stop there, right? Then you have to change your staffing ratios at the front desk because patient throughput has doubled.
Yep. Then you have to adapt the capacity of the waiting room. Then you have to change your billing flow to process twice as many claims.
So the AI tool is just the spark. The actual value comes from completely restructuring the production chain around that new capability.
You've got it.
Yeah.
But the research highlights that organizations struggle to see these cascading connections organically.
Well, yeah, it's super complicated.
It is. But there was a massive field experiment, 515 early stage ventures, that yielded a really fascinating insight here.
Oh, the case studies experiment.
Yeah. They found that if you simply expose teams to case studies of how other organizations successfully reorganized using AI, their ability to discover high-value AI applications in their own business jumped by 44%.
44% just from reading about other companies doing it.
Yes, because that 44% increase shows these teams aren't just copy-pasting the software tools, they're using the examples as cognitive scaffolding.
Oh, I see.
By seeing how another company rebuilt their production chain, they learned the actual mechanism of rethinking their own workflows.
Well, let's examine a few of those specific case studies from the text then, because the mechanics of how they operate are really revealing.
Let's do it.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The first is a company called Gamma, operating in product development. And traditionally, building software is a super long sequential chain.
Right, a product manager talks to users, writes a dense specification document, hands it to a designer.
The designer creates mock-ups, hands those to an engineer, the engineer builds it over a month, and finally QA tests it.
It takes forever. But Gamma managed to completely collapse that sequential chain.
How?
They utilize AI systems that continuously monitor how people are actively using their product. And based on that live usage data, The AI automatically generates new product variants and features to address user needs.
Wait, automatically, so no specification documents, no handoffs between departments?
None. A single product manager leveraging AI can ship features that used to require a multidisciplinary team of 10.
That is insane. But the underlying lesson here is what happened to their operational bottleneck.
Right, the bottleneck always moves.
Exactly. Because they can generate features instantly, the new hardest part of their business wasn't building the software anymore. The new bottleneck became AI evils.
Yes, checking if the AI is actually good.
They suddenly had to build robust, automated systems specifically designed to grade and evaluate if the AI-generated features were actually, working properly.
And that is complementarity mapping in action. The tool that generates the code is practically worthless without the complementary tool that evaluates the code.
Right. Yeah.
They realize that if execution speed drops to near zero, quality control becomes the new constraint.
So another case study is Rees Labs, and they take this even further. Usually, building a startup prototype is a massive sequential bet.
Yeah, you pick a tech stack, spend 3 months building an app, put it in front of users, and just pray you built the right thing.
It's so expensive and slow, but Rees Labs bypassed that entirely by using AI to engage in parallel exploration.
Parallel exploration.
Yeah.
So instead of sequential prototyping, the founders write a single requirements document, feed it into 3 different AI coding environments simultaneously, and within a few hours, they have 3 distinct functioning prototypes.
In hours instead of months. They aren't just saving time, they were fundamentally changing the risk profile of building a product.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And they can put all 3 versions in front of users on the exact same day.
Right.
They even have the AI rewrite the code live while they are on the phone gathering customer feedback.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And if we connect this back to the theory, the bottleneck shifts drastically again. The difficult part of the business is no longer the technical challenge of building the software.
So what is it?
The constraint is purely logistical.
Yeah.
How fast can you find enough human beings to test the prototypes and provide meaningful feedback?
The humans are the bottleneck.
Yep.
Well, if Rees Labs is changing how they build, the third case study, Phase Shift, is changing what they inherently are.
Phase shift, right. They operate in accounts receivable.
Yeah, and the traditional process was this wild 8-step loop bouncing between Excel spreadsheets, a human clerk, QuickBooks, the human clerk again, a banking portal, and Gmail.
So the human is literally serving as a manual bridge between different pieces of software that refuse to talk to each other.
Exactly. Phase Shift recognized that AI can act as that bridge instead.
So it pulls the data, reconciles the ledgers, matches the incoming payments, and drafts the necessary emails.
And the human is only flagged if there's a highly irregular exception. But the true transformation here is the shift in their corporate identity.
What do you mean by that?
Well, by automating that manual bridge, Phase Shift transitioned from being a labor-intensive professional services firm to a scalable software business.
Oh, I see. They've fundamentally changed their pricing model and their go-to-market strategy.
Yeah, they used AI to escape the constraints of a traditional service agency altogether.
But that really is the ultimate reward of solving the discovery bottleneck.
But if Phase Shift is completely transforming their business model, that has to radically alter their financial reality. They can't be spending capital the same way a traditional firm would.
They definitely aren't. And the numbers in this research back that up.
Let's talk about the economics of this.
Looking again at that 515 venture field experiment by Kim and colleagues from 2026, the firms that received structured support to map AI into their processes completed 12% more tasks, were 18% more likely to acquire paying customers, and generated 1.9 times higher revenue.
1.9 times higher, that's huge.
And they accomplished all that growth while requiring substantially less external capital.
I think the number was 39.5% less capital, to be exact.
Yes, which saved them over $220,000 per organization.
Okay, so if you're listening to this, you're probably wondering what this means for your own job security.
Naturally.
Because if a company needs nearly 40% less capital to operate and grow, doesn't that imply they are just laying people off and letting the models run the business?
It is a very rational concern, but the research presents a vital counterintuitive finding here.
Okay.
In that exact same study, they found no overall change in labor demand.
Wait, really? No change?
Let me reiterate that. The overall demand for human labor did not drop. Companies are not using AI merely to replace people. They are using it to fundamentally change what their people are doing.
Okay, wait. I'm trying to picture the day-to-day reality of this. If the humans at phase shift aren't doing the accounts receivable data entry anymore, aren't they just sitting around with nothing to do?
Well, roles that are entirely focused on routine information processing, like being that human bridge between two disconnected software systems we talked about, those specific tasks do vanish.
Right.
But because the organization is now operating at a much higher tempo, serving more clients and launching more products, roles requiring strategic judgment, navigating novel situations, and managing complex human relationships become the real engine of the company.
Oh, I get it. So an analyst who previously spent 3 weeks gathering spreadsheet data is now expected to spend those 3 weeks directly co-creating strategy with the client.
Exactly. You're elevating the human work.
Historically, the rule of business was proportional growth. If you wanted to double your customer base, you had to roughly double your staff and double your operational budget. You had this linear relationship between labor and capital.
But companies that solve the AI mapping problem completely break that linear rule.
I break the old rules.
Yeah. They are expanding into new markets and launching parallel products without a proportional increase in headcount. That explains why they need 39.5% less external venture capital.
Because they achieve positive unit economics much earlier. The cost of experimenting, failing, and coordinating drops to near zero,
Exactly.
which naturally leads us to the implementation phase. If you want to build this capability, this specific organizational AI muscle over the long term, how do you actually do it?
Well, the research points out a massive trap that companies fall into right out of the gate.
The creation of the AI Center of Excellence.
Yes, the centralized tech lab.
It always sounds like a great idea in a board meeting.
Instead of centralized expertise, the solution the research advocates for is distributed fluency. You need the people who actually execute the specific organizational activities to be the ones actively searching for AI applications.
The text highlights a financial services firm that executed this through a resident AI fellow program, right?
Yes. Instead of isolating their AI experts, they embedded them directly into functional teams, sales, operations, product development for 6-month rotations.
So these fellows weren't there to just write code in a vacuum.
No, they were there to sit next to the operations manager, watch how the work actually gets done, and suggest where AI could restructure the flow.
And this ties directly back to solving that search space fastness we talked about earlier.
It does.
Because the AI expert doesn't have to guess where the microactivities are, the operations manager already knows them inside and out.
Precisely. It marries deep functional expertise with technical capability, solving both search space vastness and capability uncertainty at the exact same time. It is. But for this to work across an entire company, the research argues every manager needs working knowledge. You don't need to know how to build a neural network, obviously, but you need enough fluency to look at your daily workflow and spot the structural opportunities.
And to build that fluency, you have to give your teams the safety to fail.
Absolutely. The research heavily emphasizes the need for continuous experimentation through sandboxes.
Sandboxes. Those are secure, dedicated digital spaces where teams can test AI applications on anonymized company data, right?
Right. So you don't risk compliance breaches or an operational disaster. If an experiment hallucinates or just breaks the sandbox, there is no harm done to the actual business.
And crucially, you have to document those failures just as rigorously as the successes.
Yes. The text detailed an AI experiment tracker.
Right, so if the marketing team discovers an AI tool is completely incapable of a specific type of demographic analysis, they log it.
That way, the finance team doesn't waste 3 weeks repeating the exact same failed experiment.
That internal knowledge capture is so essential. But maybe the most critical habit a modern organization must build is the continuous updating of their mental models.
Because AI capabilities are evolving at a breakneck pace.
Right. An application you tested 6 months ago and discarded as fundamentally impossible. Well, it might be completely viable with today's model update.
You can't just cross a use case off the list forever.
You have to routinely ask, what did we previously decide this technology couldn't do that might actually be possible this morning?
If you anchor your strategy on outdated capability assessments, you will inevitably lose to the competitor who is continuously testing the edge of the frontier.
So I guess the ultimate takeaway for you listening to this is that the winner in this technological race isn't necessarily the company with the deepest pockets or the most expensive enterprise software.
No, because access to the raw AI models is essentially leveled.
Exactly. The true winner is the organization that solves the discovery bottleneck. It's the team that figures out where and how to apply AI across the entire production chain, mapping it to complementary processes rather than just speeding up isolated tasks.
Which leaves us with a rather provocative thought to consider.
Oh, I like provocative thoughts.
Well, we've talked extensively about how AI shifts the organizational bottleneck. At Gamma, the bottleneck shifted to AI evaluation. At Rise Labs, it shifted to gathering human feedback.
Right.
So I challenge you to ask yourself, if you successfully map AI across your entire organization tomorrow and your execution speed, the actual time it takes to build a product, write a report, or analyze a data set drops to near zero. What becomes your new limiting factor?
Wow.
When building and executing are no longer the hard parts of your business, what is?
When the cost of execution goes to zero, human strategy, taste, and judgment become absolutely everything. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. As you go back to your desk today, look at your daily workflows not as a series of isolated tasks to rush through, but as interconnected pieces of a much larger puzzle waiting to be solved.